Magnum Finesse fishing. Bigger fish, you bet. Bigger line, you bet. Lean on them and get them out of that heavy brush, you bet. Hey guys and girls, let's talk about finesse fishing, and then let's throw a little wrench into that. Let's talk about Magnum finesse fishing. You ever heard of Magnum finesse fishing? Well, obviously, if you're going to Magnum finesse fish, you're going to do it differently than fishing regular finesse worms. Most finesse worms are fished on what they call a jigging worm, or what we call these jigging worms back when I was a kid. They call them shaky heads now, and they come in all kinds of different shapes and forms. This particular one right here has got an offset hook. This is made so when you rig your finesse worm on it, and this is a little small 5-inch finesse worm. Actually, you'd probably rig with a smaller rig than what I've got right here. And on this, all you're going to do is simply run that in, come off down here a little ways. When you get to this bend, you're going to turn this around where that little small part is sitting right behind that jig. And then you're going to come up here, and we're simply going to take the point of the hook, put this down a little bit, and put it in where it's straight. Now what we want here is we want to straight our worm straight, and as you can see, this is going to set down on the bottom, and then this little finesse worm sets up. So as we send it down, it goes down to the bottom like this. It'll set on the bottom. Now it will not sit and stand up. It just doesn't do that very often. A lot of people tell you it does, but mostly it sits, but it will kind of fall slowly, and then you hop it again. And when you hop it, you bring that tail, it goes up. Now it doesn't go that fast because you got a water volume down there, but it's going to move down, and you hop it, you hop it, and you hop it. And that's a finesse worm. Now, one of the keys in a finesse worm is you're usually using this on light line, 6-pound, 8-pound test line, 10-pound test line. So you want to use a light wire hook. Now when they're talking about a light wire hook, it's a thin hook. It's very easily, if you get hung up, a lot of times you can straighten that hook out and you get your bait back if it's hung up and you don't lose your jig. But light wire hook, also a big fish, if he gets on there just right, he can straighten that hook up a little bit and he'll get away. So light wire hooks are good, and yet you still have to use, if you're using light line, use a drag, you flip the bail, feed line out to that fish. You don't put a lot of pressure on the fish. Now, this is jigging worm or shaky head fishing. This particular type rig right here, and this is another one of my favorites because it's got a little weed guard on it. Now on this one, what I want to do, and I'll just, you gotta grab me another brand new shaky head out here. This is a Lucky Strike 5-inch finesse worm. Lucky Finesse is what it's called, Lucky Finesse worm. And it's a small worm, but this is not what we're really going to get excited about. We're going to talk Magnum bass, Magnum finesse fishing. And you take this little worm here. Now, what I'm going to do on this one, since I have a weed guard on it, and now I'm going to also kind of bend that weed guard down where it's close to the point of that hook. I want it down close to the point of that hook right there. So as it hits something, it'll flare off and it won't tangle me up. And all I'm going to do on this, now it's got a little keeper right here. Now you can put you a little glue on this. Take a little Gorilla Glue or Crazy Glue, Super Glue, whatever you want to call it. Put you a little drop on there before you put it on. Oh, it's glued to my finger. You ever do that? I do that all the time. I hate that when that happens. All right, now we're on this one. We're simply going to take that and put it a little further down. You see now I've gone in there about 1 inch. Now I'm going to come up here and I want it to be straight. And as I come up here, now if I was going to put super glue on there, Gorilla Glue, now's when I would do it. Gorilla Super Glue, I put me a little bit on there right now. I'm simply going to push that finesse worm up on there. Now that will hold it really good right there. And now you got a finesse worm, you got an open hook, fish bites it, he's going to push that down, and you can hook him real easy. Both of these rigs, and there's all kinds of different jig heads you can use. All kinds of different jig heads for various ways. You want to swim it, you want to bounce it on the bottom, you want to bounce it off stuff, all different ways to rig them. Two totally different, great ways to finesse rig. But here's what I'm talking about. Magnum finesse worm fishing. This is a 7-inch Lucky Magnum finesse worm, and it's a big boy. This is made for big fish. This is not made for fooling around with those little 6 and 8 pound test line. Rig this baby on 15, 17, 20 pound test line. Get after it. These are big worms. These are worms for big ones. Now, if you're going to fish a finesse worm, if you're going to move up to, you got to be able to get them out of the package. You got to be smarter than the package. Now, Jimmy, that's not a finesse worm. No, it's a Magnum finesse worm. You want to move up to a jig head that's a Magnum jig head also. Now this is an 1/8 ounce, that's all it is. You can move up to a 3/8 ounce, a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, I don't care. But the big thing is not the size of the lead head. The size of the lead head, you can have that in light wire hooks, heavy wire hooks. This is a big, strong 5/0 hook. This is a heavy wire hook. You see how big that hook is? This is made, when you get an 8 or 10 pound fish on there, lean on him, no problem. He's not gonna straighten that thing out. And this is what you want if you're finesse worm fishing with a Magnum finesse worm. Now, you can rig it the same way. You can take this worm if I want to. I can come up here and do the same thing if I want to. This is on a straight hook. I'm just gonna come in a little ways, about a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna run this all the way up. Now I'm past the barb. I got the barb down below my worm, and I'll come up here. I'm gonna do the same thing I did a minute ago with the offset hook, except now I'm doing it with a straight hook. Come up here, put that through. I've got the same situation that I had a minute ago, but I've got a big worm for big bass. I've got a big hook for big bass. Now, if I want, I can do the same thing I did a minute ago, using the same jig head. And again, I'm a big believer in using Gorilla Super Glue on there, putting your drop up there before you slide it up. You'll be able to get a lot of bites on that before you have to re-rig it. If I'm gonna rig it this way, I'm gonna go in about 1.5 inches or so, maybe even a little bit more. I wanna come up, it depends on how long your hook is here. I wanna come up, now I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna slide it. If you're gonna put your super glue on, your Gorilla Glue, right now is when you do it. Put it on right there, slide that up on that glue. Now you've got the same rig that you had a minute ago. Now, the problem you've got here on this is if you're fishing around a lot of brush, you got an open hook, it's gonna hang up. So if you're gonna fish around a lot of brush, just rig it the way I did a minute ago, where it's coming up and covering that hook. Here's another little trick that I'll throw in here. I don't have a rubber band with me. You can actually take a small rubber band. Take a small rubber band. Now, I fish a lot with barbless hooks. This won't work if you're using barbless hooks. But if you got a barb, most of you do fish with a barb. I fish pretty much 100% of the time anymore since I'm not fishing tournaments with a barbless hook. But you take a little rubber band, put it through the eye of your hook up here, or put it around the bait, come up here and hook your rubber band into here. That rubber band will be a weed guard, and you can fish it just like that with that rubber band on there. They push the rubber band back, you set the hook, and you catch the fish. Magnum finesse fishing. Bigger fish, you bet. Bigger line, you bet. Lean on them and get them out of that heavy brush, you bet. Magnum finesse worm fishing, try it. I promise you, you'll catch it.